Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. We got a CTP guide for you today. We're going to be covering 35 characters. I put them in this specific order so it's easier for me to explain. And we're going to cover 11 CTPs that could technically work for PvP that are significant. And we're going to go over how these characters work with them in a tier list, with S being recommended, this being the second best recommended, third best recommended, this being useful, last option, no effect, and the CTP would make the character worse. So if I get something wrong, hit me up in the comments. If I get something right, hit me up in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it with the guide. We're going to start with the CTP of Conquest, and I put 35 tunes in my specific order. All of these characters here are recommended. Sentry, Surfer, and Logan all thrive on this CTP at Brilliant with the 25% Pierce, the 100+% all attack, and the 80+% HP that you need to make this Brilliant CTP effective. Now, we have somebody like Null here who has a different CTP that's his best option, but Conquest is definitely his second best option. Now we have Carnage here, who Carnage works with other CTPs, but if you were to equip this Conquest as a last option, it wouldn't be the worst choice in the world. It's just Carnage works better with other CTPs. Adam, definitely recommended with this CTP if you have the stats. Apocalypse, also recommended if you have the stats. Deadpool. Magic is a second best choice. She works better with another CTP, but for the auto modes, this CTP of Conquest definitely works best with these characters. Madeline Pryor, I would put this in the second best because there are better options. Because I think in these days she needs more DPS. But this is just my opinion after all. You could slightly agree or disagree with me. Spider-Man, I think that this is completely recommended for him to use. He does well with a Mighty. Jean Grey, however, this is recommended not to use on her, as defensive CTPs have no effect for the most part for her. So this is not recommended. Doesn't necessarily make her worse though, but it definitely doesn't have much effect. Thanos, definitely one of his recommended choices, especially at Brilliant though, cannot be Mighty. Quicksilver, definitely also in this category, even though I think he does need more DPS and there are better Conquest choices, but this is a great choice for Quicksilver. Next we have Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, again, Ghost Rider relies on DPS, so Conquest is not the recommended choice. Doesn't have much effect. Next we have Agent Venom. It wouldn't have no effect on Agent Venom. It can be useful, but this is more like a last choice option. Like, you wouldn't want to put a Conquest on Agent Venom. There are way better choices. Punisher, I think Punisher works more with DPS, but this is technically his second best. Could be his first best depending on where you want to put him. He does really well with this CTP at Brilliant and can last multiple rotations. Black Widow, I think this is also the second best choice for her, as I think she also requires DPS for her to be effective. But you can use it, and it is roughly her second best choice. Weapon Hex, I don't think it's a last option. I think it's a solid third choice. I think there are better options for her, but Conquest can definitely work. It can be useful. Same with Invisible Woman. However, I think Invisible Woman has support utility. I think she has better choices. So I think while Conquest can be useful, it's not like her best choice. It's more like her last option choice. Hela doesn't have any effect. She requires certain statistics to work in PvP. Doom, this is his second best choice. I think he could definitely work really well with it, but there's other CTPs that work slightly better that are cheaper options. Blue Dragon, I think also it's more of a luxury CTP for her, even though it works very, very well with her. Strife, Strife used to work with Conquest. I would say it could still be somewhat useful. It's not the number one or the number two choice anymore, as I think he's utilized more for support utility and or more for DPS. Hulk, same thing. I think it's more of a third choice because it's more for PvP, and Hulk just does not cut it in high levels of PvP anymore. But with this, he can do some low level on auto modes, definitely. Cersei doesn't have any effect on her. She is very CTP specific. Captain America, I would consider this more of a second best choice. I think there are cheaper options that work better for him, but this definitely works. Rachel Summers doesn't have much effect, or yeah, I wouldn't think she has much effect on her. Or maybe it's like a last option because there are better choices with Conquest, but it doesn't have any effect. It does have some useful utility. It's just not the best choice. Elektra, I would consider this more of like a third choice for her. Maybe a second choice, but I think she needs DPS. She already has the survivability. I think this is more of a third choice option. Black Swan, I think this is a good option. It's a good third choice option. I think there are cheaper alternatives that have her work slightly better though. Daredevil, I think he needs this to be effective, but he's still effective in lower levels. So I would consider him in this category because he desperately needs it, not because he's second recommended choice with it, because there are better choices for Conquest. Emma Frost, no effect. She needs a rework. Gore, more of a last option. I think he could work with it, but in very, very low levels of PvP. Probably would want to stick just a regular Conquest on him, or like maybe Mighty, like don't go all out. Same with Black Swan, same with Elektra. Colossus, no effect. And Mr. Fantastic, I would put probably around this category because he does have the stats for this Conquest CTP to back it up, but there are better options. So for the CTP of Conquest, this is how the tier list for the 35 characters looks. And you could agree or disagree with it. I think it's pretty much accurate. Alright, now we're going to go over the CTP of Greed. Now, CTP of Greed is probably the best, like the second best PvP CTP in the game. So let's see who works with it. Right off the bat, Sentry, Null, their meta for it. It's probably their recommended choice, especially for Null. Silver Surfer, on the other hand, does not work with this. I've even tried it. It just doesn't have the DPS for it. The proc is too sporadic for him to use it, and he also becomes too fragile with it. Wolverine, this is also tied with Conquest as his best choice because he kills opponents through debuff removal with this, so it's very, very effective. On top of that, in Otherworld Battle, because they have Greed, these tunes can still be used to full effect even while debuffed. Carnage also can work with this. He does do well with DPS. Same thing with Apocalypse. Does really well with DPS. Same with Deadpool. Magic, it's her best choice by far. Madeline Pryor, also a top choice. Could maybe be like second best, but I think Madeline Pryor is really good with this CTP. Spider Man, I think it's more of a third best. I think Spider Man now relies very much on survivability from Conquest to work in PvP. Jean, if you didn't have other two choices to pick, Greed could still be kind of useful, but it's definitely like a last resort, especially for PvP, and she will suffer in the other side of the game too. Thanos, no effect, useless with the CTP. Doesn't make him worse, but doesn't make him better. Quicksilver, this is probably his second best choice. It's a great choice, does very well in terms of DPS. Ghost Rider also requires other two CTPs to work. This is more of like a last resort if you have nothing left. He's also going to struggle on the other side of the game. Agent Venom, I would say he could kind of work with this, but I actually think I'm going to put him more into the last option because I think Greed has much better choices than Agent Venom. Agent Venom also has support utility, so it's never going to be his top choice. Punisher, I would definitely rank him in here in this category. I think Greed is the recommended choice for Punisher. I think he could do fairly decent in other areas of content as well. Black Widow, same thing. I think it's one of her top choices, and it does pretty well for her in regards to DPS. Weapon Hex, also highly recommended to use this CTP. Makes her very effective. Definitely a second best choice for Sue, as she could one shot with multiple different skills as well as trap you in them. So she could be a very good starter and does fairly good DPS. Hela, unfortunately, it doesn't do any effect because she is like very limited in her ability with it. She needs other effects. Doom, I would consider this like a third best choice. I think he has the potential to one shot, but he needs more survivability other than DPS. He's meant to survive more rotations. Strife, I think this is a fair choice. I don't think it's terrible. I think he's actually pretty useful with this in some niche content. Hulk doesn't do much effect. I wouldn't even consider it a last choice because just because Hulk could kill Wolverine really well with this CTP doesn't mean that it's a good choice. So I would put it in the no effect category. Blue Dragon, I would put this as a second best choice. I think she's really good with it. I think that any tunes with penetration could thrive on this CTP and do fairly well, especially since she has some sort of immortality as well, combined with Sunbird. Cersei, no effect. She needs extra stats for her to work in PvP. Captain America, because he's not good in the manual modes and he's meant more for the auto modes, I would consider this more as a second best choice, even though it could be categorized as an S tier choice because I use this CTP on him and I think it's great. Rachel Summers, I think it's more of a second best choice as well. She has penetration to compensate for it, and I think she does need the DPS, so this is definitely a second choice. Maybe even a first choice, but you could argue. Black Swan, I think it's a decent choice. I don't think it's a terrible choice, but I think it's more rooting towards third best, as she thrives more in the auto modes and needs a little bit of an extra defense boost to survive multiple rotations rather than just getting the one shot. Elektra, I think this is Elektra's best CTP, even though Elektra is not the best PvP choice. I think that Greed makes her somewhat passable and somewhat useful. I would say this is probably her best use. Same with Daredevil. I think that with this CTP, Daredevil does what he does, which is one shot whenever he is able to. And that's it. I think that's all he is capable of doing. It's arguably tied with Conquest. If it is tied with Conquest, I think I put Daredevil in this category. Then I would put him more in this category. But it depends on how good your cards are. Colossus doesn't have any effect with this. Doesn't work. Mr. Fantastic, I think he could do fairly well with this. I would consider it his second best choice, just below Conquest. Gore, I think, also does really well with this. And it could be mighty, it doesn't have to be extravagant. The good thing about Greed is that it could be mighty, and most of these tunes will still retain like their effectiveness more or less. And Emma Frost, I would put it in the last option. I think she needs DPS, and this gives her DPS, but she's one of like the bottom tier PvP tunes anyway. Greed doesn't make anybody worse, but it definitely, on certain characters, it doesn't have any effect. But PvP characters wise, this is one of the best CTPs to have. Alright, next CTP we're covering is CTP of Authority. The choices for this can be a little bit tricky as it's quite usable. The steal effect is really, really good, but getting it and getting the benefit from it all depends on how the character is built. So, for example, could Sentry work with it? Yes, but is it the best choice to give him other than the others that I covered already? No. So, I would put it in third best. He can work with it for sure, but it's not the best choice to give him, nor is it the second best. And neither is it for Authority, for Null. And I would say that it can be useful, but it's a very like last resort. Like if you have nothing else to give him, like you could maybe work with this in the auto modes. Silver Surfer, I would say this is his third best. It's a decent choice. Even though the invincibility negates the counter sometimes, all he needs is the reflect damage. So he could definitely use it, but there's other choices that are slightly better. Logan is one of the few who works with this pretty well, but it has to be brilliant. If it's not brilliant, he won't really work too well with this. X-Deaths works really well with this, his previous uniform. So this can work. This, I would say this is a last resort because it doesn't give him the offense he needs and it doesn't give him the defense he needs, but it's not totally useless. It gives him maybe an extra layer of super guard break immunity from Invincible. But it's not the worst choice in the world. Adam, also, I've seen people rock this, but this is definitely like a last resort option. I wouldn't recommend this on Adam. But if it was the only thing you can give him and he's like a low level, maybe you can pop this on him if temporarily. Apocalypse, I would say it's somewhere around here. I think he could definitely use it and he's usable with it. But once again, it's kind of a situation where it doesn't give him the offense or the defense he needs. It kind of just gives him a mix of both. Deadpool, I think this is like a last resort option. I don't think he works too well with this, but maybe in some instances against Blast, he could tank for you a little bit better. Magic, I think this is maybe a third best choice. I think it's okay on her. I think it gives her a good layer of survivability as she does have the heal and does get the counter off frequently. So it could be used. Battle and Prior, this is one of the best CTPs to put on her. And for the other two, I did kind of put them in the middle, like in this category and this category. So I think authority works on her very, very well. And she could do a lot of damage in the auto modes with this. I would just put her here for now. Maybe I'll put her at the end. Maybe I'll put her in this tier, but it's somewhere around here. Spider-Man. Spider-Man Last Resort. I don't think he works with this, but if he was a low level and you had a last option, you could maybe give it to him temporarily, but I don't think he works very well. Jean, no effect. Doesn't give her anything really. Maybe like an extra layer of super guard break, but lots of CTPs give her that. Thanos, it's one of the best CTPs to rock on him, even though I think he's massively outdated. You could rock a Mighty Authority or a Brilliant Authority, and you'll get pretty much the same value out of him. It's a great choice for him in the auto modes, maybe for the manual modes if you love him that much, but he's pretty outdated now, unfortunately. Quicksilver, I would maybe put this in the third best because the other options for him are better, but I think he can work with this, and it gives him a little bit of mix of both offense and defense, which is pretty good. Ghost Rider, no effect, doesn't benefit from any of its effects. Too fragile to rock it. Agent Venom, it's useful on him. It could be useful on him, but there's other choices to rock that are better. I think it's one of the better last choices for him, though. Punisher, I would put this around here. I think he works really, really well with it in the auto modes, and it gives him an extra layer of super guard break and defense that he needs. Black Widow, I think it's also a decent choice for her. I think you could rock it on her, and I think she could benefit somewhat from it. Maybe it could be in between. Maybe it's in the third spot. Weapon Hex, I think this is a very good choice for her. I use it on her personally. I think it's great. And it's mighty, and she works with it very, very well. She has great utility regardless. Also a great choice for Invisible Woman. She's very good with it. It gives her an extra layer of defense that she needs. Hela doesn't have effect. She doesn't benefit from the effects of it. Doom, this is his best CTP, arguably. He still is meant and built around it. And the only issue he has with it is that it could negate his counter. But he usually executes his counter in the second revive anyway during the auto modes. Strife, I'm going to put this here just because I kind of undervalued his best CTP choices for the others, even though I think like Greed is also somewhere in this category. I think that Authority is kind of the way to go right now, as there's no other CTPs that work with him as good. I could maybe put him in this category, but for most, I think people are going to put him here, and most are going to rock the CTP on him. Hulk, I actually think this is a good CTP on him for this uniform in particular with an offense support. I would consider it a third best just because this is actually arguably the best choice for PvP if you even still want to get any value out of him in PvP, because otherwise he heavily struggles now, especially with the new uniform. Blue Dragon, I would maybe put this around here. I think I valued Greed and Conquest very highly. I think I can put her here in this category or here in this category. I think she works well with it, especially in the auto modes. She has the damage for it. Cersei, no effect. She's only good with one CTP. Captain America, I think a lot of people recommend that they put this CTP on Captain America, so I'm happy to put it at the end of this tier. It gives him super guard break immunity that he needs. During immortality and accumulation, he does get the offensive boost. So this is a very good choice for him, especially since he's only good for the auto modes, not the manual. Rachel, I don't see many people rocking this CTP, but since she has penetration, I'm sure she can work with it, but I'll put it in the last option category. Mr. Fantastic, I would probably put this around here if I rated the other two CTPs higher for him. He's pretty good with this. Gives him extra layer of super guard break immunity and defense that he needs for him to do multiple rotations. Black Swan, also second best. I think she does benefit from the invincible and her special defense stats stacking up together. And it also gives her some added offense boost that she does need. Electra, there's not many CTPs that work with her other than the other two mentioned before. So I would put this somewhere here. I think maybe she can work with it in a very low level of the auto in PvP. Daredevil, I would rank this also maybe somewhere here. I think it's pretty good on him with it, but he's very, very limited. Colossus, this doesn't have much effect as he doesn't benefit from either defense or offensive boost. Gore, since I valued his other two CTPs low and not in this category in the second best, I'm going to rate this CTP here because I think it's a cheap CTP you could give him and he could still do some sort of damage and buy you some time in the auto modes. And then, of course, Emma Frost, most people have already rocked authority on her anyway, so I'm going to put her in this category. She does benefit from the steal. She does benefit from invincibility. And this also grants her like enough extra damage to give Reflect, which is her primary key skill. So this was the list for authority, guys. Alright, the next CTP we're going over is the CTP of Regeneration. This CTP only works on Brilliant. If it's at Mighty, it does not work very well. So you gotta make sure that these characters that are getting it are equipped with Brilliant. Why? Well, if it's Brilliant, it becomes the second best choice for Sentry. Can maybe be a useful choice for Null, but probably a last option. Could be maybe a third choice option for Silver Surfer if he is strong enough. Maybe. Maybe a last resort for Logan. Like, I think Logan needs more offense than he does defense. Because this is just a strictly defensive CTP. Like, this is why Silver Surfer and Sentry can work with it. Because they're already insanely offensive. Carnage also not really useful. Can be, but it's like a last option. It doesn't make him... It doesn't have any of... Like, it's not that it has no effect on him. It's just that it's a last option. It's not that good. He needs offense. Same thing with Adam. He needs offense. Doesn't benefit from the defense. Apocalypse could probably do okay with this. It's not a terrible choice if it's Brilliant. Deadpool could probably do something with it. Maybe like it's more of like a last option because I think Deadpool does need defense. Magic I think needs offense. I think it's more of like a last option as well. Madeline Pryor can work with this. She could do decently well with this, I think. It's probably like more of a third choice for her. Spider-Man does pretty well with this. I'm not going to lie. He does pretty well with this if it's Brilliant. Jean Grey, no effect at all. Thanos, maybe if it's Brilliant, you could use it as a last resort, but he now is not that good with this at all. He's just too fragile for it. Quicksilver, I think he can do pretty well with this. I think I ranked some CTPs higher, but yeah, it's somewhere around here. I think he could do decently well with a Brilliant regen. Ghost Rider, no effect. He doesn't benefit from the defense. Age of Venom, this is not a terrible choice. I think it goes somewhere around here. I think that it's better than a last option choice. I think like if you want to go outside of a support build, this could be the way to go depending on how strong your cards are. Punisher also can do decently well with this. Maybe like it's more of like a last choice simply because he may not be able to get the penetration from regen off in time. So I'll put it right here for now. Maybe I'll put it a little bit more like around this area. Black Widow, I think she could do something with it. In the auto modes, I think she maybe could have a fair go, maybe do multiple rotations. Uh, Weapon Hex needs super guard break immunity. Without it, it doesn't have much effect. Won't do much for her. Invisible Woman, I could see this working pretty well. I don't know about that well, but I think she could do well like around here. I think it's a solid choice for her compared to some other ones. Hela, this is actually her second best, and I don't know why people like this CTP on her, but I would say like it's 50-50. Like if people aren't picking a certain other CTP, they're picking this one. So I'll put it under the second best choice. Doom, I think it's more of a last resort. I think the penetration can help, but I think Doom needs some form of offense because he doesn't do a lot of DPS. Strife, I would maybe put this in the third choice. I think it's not a terrible choice either. You know, you could probably pop a mighty regen on him, get some sort of value out of him in the auto modes, because with this he's gonna struggle in manual modes like timeline. But there's another CTP that he can work with in timeline, but not this one. But he can do well in the auto modes. Hulk. It's probably his best choice simply because it's the best hybrid choice. And if you get it to brilliant, he could definitely have a lot of value in the auto modes in PvP. But it has to be brilliant. It can't be mighty. You can have mighty for PvE content, but not PvP. Blue Dragon, I would put it somewhere around here. I think it's a solid choice for the auto modes if it's at brilliant. Cersei, no effect. Only one CTP works. Captain America. He needs super guard break immunity. So this is like a last option if you have nothing else. And it's not the greatest choice, but it's not the worst choice in the world. Rachel Summers. I guess she can do okay with this. I've seen a lot of people rock her with this. I would consider it somewhere here in like third best. I think it's not the last option choice. I don't think there's many CTPs that she could rock. So I think this is a fair choice. Electra. I think Electra needs DPS. I think it's more of like a last option choice. I don't really think she works with this all too well. I mean, maybe it's a third best because I can see the penetration working in her favor. She could add a layer of extra survivability that she does actually have. Daredevil, yeah, maybe the same thing. Maybe if he could dodge, he could benefit from a brilliant regen. But yeah, it's somewhere in third best. I don't think it's a terrible choice. Black Swan, I think this may arguably be her best choice because she benefits from that shield no matter what, and that penetration, she's going to be doing multiple rotations. I think a brilliant regen is the way to go for her, to be honest. Colossus, yeah, I think it could be an okay last option. I don't think it's a terrible option to pick. Yeah. Gore, I would say maybe it's somewhere like around here. I think he could provide as a tanker in the auto modes, and he could still provide some use. It's a cheap CTP to put on him. It doesn't really have to be brilliant like majority of the others. Like for this character and for like this character and for maybe like this character, you can maybe put a mighty regen and it'll be okay. You know. Emma Frost, I think she could definitely work with this quite well. I think it's also a cheap alternative to put on her. And it's a fair choice given that she's outdated. and she could benefit more from Reflect, which is her primary skill to use. Alright, the next CTP we're covering is CTP of Refinement. And if you thought that Regen was limited, this CTP is very limited because there's a lot of contingencies. It's good on characters that have guard break immunity and or super armor, and it's pretty good if they have super guard break immunity of some sort in their kit, whether it's through debuff removal and invincibility or native super guard break immunity, which is super rare to have. But regardless, this character is probably the best character to use with this CTP, because if your cards are fully offensive, this CTP at Brilliant completes his defensive kit. So he becomes a complete character, and he becomes a complete Wolverine counter as well. Wolverine, Sentry, Null. These are like last resorts for different reasons. Like Wolverine needs regular guard break immunity. Sentry, he doesn't benefit a lot from the heal. The heal is rather slow, and he needs also super guard break immunity, and he needs regular guard break immunity as much as possible. And it just doesn't offer him anything offensively. Same with Null. It doesn't offer him anything offensively. Null needs offense too. So this is like maybe useful. It's not doesn't have any it's not that it doesn't have any effect, it's just it's a last option for sure. Silver Surfer, however, second best choice. He has super armor and he's lacking heal, and he has reflect that combines with his offense. So he's really suited for it. Surfer is very CTP versatile. You'd be surprised what he can work with. Adam, no, he does not work with this. I would probably put this into the no effect because it doesn't give him any offense, and he's going to get guard broken fairly easily, and the heal is very, very slow on him. He's going to die pretty instantly. Apocalypse, yeah, I would maybe could put it in here. I think it's pretty limited on him. I think Apocalypse also needs regular guard break immunity because he lacks invincibility for the initial time that he starts his skills. So he definitely needs that. Deadpool, same thing. Offers nothing offensively. Gets guard broken. You know, already healing. He's already fragile. He's usually not paired with support, so he's not going to really work with this. Same with Magic. Not really going to work with this. She needs guard break and super guard break, especially in the very, very beginning of the match, which Refinement doesn't give at all. Madeline, I mean, I consider a lot of the other CTPs before better, so I'm going to put it in third best. I think she works with it rather well. She does carry a lot of Invincible, so she can technically work with this. Spider-Man, no, can't work with it. Needs guard break immunity. Needs super guard break immunity. Needs support. Needs a lot. Jean, no effect. Needs damage. Thanos, I will almost say it makes him worse, but it obviously doesn't. He does get super guard break immunity, but most of the time it's just too late. Offers him nothing offensively. So it has no effect. It's terrible. Quicksilver, it's kind of a gamble. I would put him in maybe the high end of like last option because it's not bad. It would give him extra defense, and Quicksilver is a debuff master, so he can maybe get away with not having that much offense. Ghost Rider, no effect, doesn't benefit from the defense. I'll put this at the high end of useful last option. It's not bad on Agent Venom if you have nothing else to put on him. Punisher, I think he needs guard break immunity, super guard break immunity. So yes, again, like it's probably like a last option. Like if you have nothing else to put on him, I would almost put it into the no effect. But Punisher still packs a punch. Uh, Black Widow, yeah, last option, not very good. Needs damage, needs guard break, immunity. Weapon Hex. eh, Weapon Hex because it carries vitality. She can maybe work with it. Maybe as like a debuff master tanker, but it's not the greatest choice. It's like a third choice for her. I would be generous because this CTP is getting crushed right now, pretty bad. Yeah, Invisible Woman, she could probably work with this. I would put her probably at the low end of this tier. I don't think she's too bad with it. Debuff Master. Hela doesn't work with it, no effect. Doom doesn't work with it, no effect. Um, Strife. I don't know. Maybe you can put it as a last option because he's long range, but he's not going to do a lot of damage. Hulk, I would say it's on the low end of this, maybe third best, because in PvP this is trash. This CTP is trash in PvP. It doesn't work, but it's because of his hybrid value. So I'm gonna be generous, and I'm gonna see how many I can put here, but I don't think I can put many here, only because of his hybrid value. Uh, Blue Dragon. Yeah, I guess it's like useful last option. Maybe she can work with it to a degree. Cersei has no effect. Captain America, I'd put it in third. It has vitality, so he can work with it somewhat. Uh, no, Rachel, I don't think it has any effect. She needs guard break and she needs damage. Most people put damage on her anyway. You'd be surprised what people put on her mostly. Mr. Fantastic, no, I don't think it has any effect. He needs guard break and super guard break immunity like as much as possible. Black Swan, I mean, I put this probably at the high end here. I think she definitely could use it, and it would work out for her. She does carry, I believe she does carry a lot of invincible and debuff removal. Electra, nah, no effect. Doesn't do much. She's not gonna hit hard at all. She's gonna hit like a feather. Daredevil, I don't know. Useful last option. He still packs a punch, but very niche like AC. Same with Hulk. If you're gonna put this like niche AC, uh, I guess I don't know. There's not much point in putting a refinement on Colossus, so I'll just put no effect. Gore with refinement, I guess you can do that if you have no other choice. Uh, Emma Frost kind of needs super guard break and guard break immunity, but she can be okay with this. Yeah, I mean I'm being pretty generous with this list, honestly, because Egg is pretty bad. I would honestly put Hulk here, like I think I am. And I think this is subjective. You can put him here for hybrid value, but this is where I'd really put him. I would put Authority over here for Hulk. But other than that, yeah, I think this list is pretty accurate. Alright, now we're going to cover CTP of Destruction. People say that this is the hybrid CTP, but I actually don't think it is anymore. I think that there's another CTP I'm going to cover later that's actually better than this, and I actually think it's the best hybrid CTP in the game. But regardless, there's still a lot of people that could use this, and there's some that strictly use this in order to be meta. So we'll still go over it by my order that I've been going in, because this is my 1 through 35 list pretty much in order as I would put it, so it's easier for me to pinpoint them. Sentry, um, I think it could be somewhat useful. I don't think it's awful. I've had this CTP on his old uniform before. I thought it wasn't that bad, especially when he was 70. Because here's the thing about destruction and energy, before I go on a tangent right now. They do more damage than a mighty greed. They do. Their procs are stronger. They're 180, 200 procs. Energy and destruction is stronger than a mighty greed. Now, a brilliant greed is better than these CTPs, obviously. But in terms of raw DPS, they're better. That's why they're chosen on certain characters. Null, I wouldn't say it doesn't have any effect, but it's definitely like at the lower end of last option. You definitely wouldn't want to put it on null. There's better PvE options and PvP options for damage. Uh, Silver Surfer, I wouldn't say it doesn't have any effect, but once again, like you'd be surprised that Surfer is proc friendly, but he really doesn't need like he needs more damage than this. So this is also like a last option. Like it's not very good. Wolverine, it's on the higher end of last option. I think that he could work with this. I think Wolverine is just very, very versatile in his CTP choice. Carnage, I would put at the low end of useful. I don't think it's the best CTP for him to go with by any means, but it's not like the worst choice in the world. But this is definitely like a last option for sure. Adam also like last option. It's not very good on him. He needs more DPS. Apocalypse, probably on the higher end of last option. It's not a terrible choice. I used to rock it on him before they did the patch on him, and it was pretty decent, but it's just not enough for him. He needs slightly more damage. But he can still rock with it because Apocalypse is pretty complete. Deadpool, this is actually a decent choice for hybrid use. Gives Deadpool some decent damage. It's not a bad choice. Magic, no. This is no. Magic is greed only. She is not proc friendly. So she's going to go on the lower end. Like once again, this is not like the worst choice in the world, but this is like not a good choice. Like you'd want to get away from that choice. Yeah, maybe like on the higher end of last option. It's relatively useful, but not enough DPS. Spider-Man, people equip this CTP on him from old. I don't think it's the worst CTP in the world, but it's certainly not the best. He could be somewhat useful, but maybe like in niche circumstances. Jean, no. Just no. Strictly no. Just a few CTPs work. Thanos, no. Not the best for either content. I would put this on the high end of useful. I think Quicksilver can use this and he'll be okay. Ghost Rider, no effect, not enough damage. Agent Venom, I don't know. I guess the lower end of useful last option. It's not terrible, but no, it's not the best choice. Punisher, I would say like this is somewhere. It's somewhere around here. He's pretty useful with this. He's not bad. He's pretty good. Any kind of damage works on him. Black Widow, same thing. Pretty decent with damage regardless. Could potentially get extra penetration maybe on another skill, you know, because she's gonna land like some of her skills. Her skills are very long. Nah, Weapon Hex. Nah, she needs super guard break immunity. No effect. This is fine. I don't think there's much issue with this. I think she does have a little bit of hybrid use. I think Invisible Woman works with pretty much anything. To be honest with you, I think she's great with pretty much anything. Hela, this is her best CTP because she gets the penetration stat. So this is highly recommended. Doom, last option maybe in the middle. I don't think it's the worst choice in the world, but certainly not the best. Strife, yeah, he could work with this. It's damage, not as good as another CTP I'm gonna mention, but it's damage. Hulk, nah. Well, honestly, this isn't that bad because Hulk's penetration is relatively low, and I've seen people rock this CTP on PVE, so it's not terrible. It's not terrible. It's a decent choice for him. Uh, Blue Dragon, yeah, she could work with this. I wouldn't say it's the second or the first best by any means, but she could definitely work with this. Damage is great for characters. Also, guard break community is great for characters. Cersei, best CTP for her by far. Only CTP that works. Captain America, he used to work with this, but now he doesn't because he needs the super guard break community. I used to rock this on him, but it doesn't work with him anymore. Rachel, I would actually say this is second best, even though this is the top choice that people use. I think that there's a CTP that's actually better in terms of raw damage. But, well, actually, you know what? Because this gives her guard break immunity, she needs guard break immunity. So, you know what? I'll put her here because, yeah, of the guard break immunity. Mr. Fantastic, I don't know. He could probably work with it. Damage is good. He needs damage. A lot of these characters need damage, but nobody wants to put damage on them because they're not worth it with damage. They may struggle in the auto modes. So maybe I'll put it at the high end of last option. It's not a terrible choice. Black Swan, yeah, probably on the lower end of last option. She already has penetration. She needs the defense, and destruction doesn't give her any. She doesn't have any PV value. Elektra, it's not terrible. I think she can work with it. Any kind of damage, guard break immunity is fine. Same with Daredevil. I think he can work with it even though he has the penetration. Or maybe it's like on the high end of useful tier. It's not terrible. Colossus, I actually think this is great on him. I think Colossus actually does a lot of freaking damage with this. With his Awaken skill. You would be surprised, like on manual play. And he has the ability to play on manual because a lot of people pick him in timeline at least 30% of the time. Gore, yeah, I think this is fine. Not a bad choice. Emma, yeah, I'd probably put in just the no effect just because it doesn't have enough damage. It doesn't have enough defense or nothing. But yeah, this is accurate. Alright, next we're going to cover a CTP of energy, and I actually believe that this CTP is the best hybrid CTP in the game. It offers raw damage. Most of the top 20 characters, if not 30 characters or whatever, most of them have a lot of complete stats like super armor or guard break or invincible or some form of debuff removal, whether it's through a team or through individual or through passive, etc. So this CTP being raw damage is mostly good for like manual modes, like what I like to do. So I'm gonna tell you guys what is good for the CTP. Sentry, definitely not gonna work. It's mostly like a last option for him if you have nothing else to give him. Same with Null. Surfer, on the other hand, I am using this currently on Silver Surfer. I love this because I could two-shot anybody I want with this on manual. So this is going to be underrated. I'm probably going to get a lot of slate for this, but Silver Surfer actually works with this better than Greed. And I'll put it like at the lower end of the third best, obviously. Like behind Regen and behind Authority, because this is very niche. Wolverine, yeah. Oh yeah, can definitely work with this for sure. Carnage, oh yeah, can definitely work with this. Like I'm being too disgenerous. Like I'm not being generous. I really think that these guys maybe like not Surfer, but Wolverine and Carnage could go up here too. Like this CTP is really good on them, and it's good on Apocalypse too. Even though I think it's more of a more leaning towards the last resort option, Apocalypse is great with this. Guess what? Second best on Adam. So this should say a lot. If it's the second best CTP on Adam, even ahead of Greed in some cases, why wouldn't it be good on Silver Surfer, whose kit is identical? It's identical with Reflect. So the Reflect's doing crazy damage. Wolverine works with it in all content, becomes probably the best striker. Carnage, it does more damage than Greed, so in some cases it's better. Same with Apocalypse. It's doing more damage than Greed for me, but it's because it's at Mighty, that's why. But Mighty Energy does more damage. Deadpool, I would almost put it here. I think it's fantastic Energy CTP on him. But no, I would put it like at the high end of third best. But it's good on him. Magic doesn't work. Because Magic needs super guard break and guard break immunity, and she's not proc friendly at all, unfortunately. Madeline, it could probably work on her. It's not a terrible choice. Spider-Man, no, I would put it into the high end of no effect because it's just too risky on him. Like it's way too risky. Jean, it's not the best choice to put on her, and it just doesn't do enough damage for her regardless. So I would put her also on maybe the high end of no effect. I just haven't tested it yet, but I wouldn't do it. I mean, Thanos doesn't work with it in PvP, but in PvE this is fine. Like for Farmer Thanos or something, but I'm gonna put it in a no effect because Thanos just doesn't work with it. I tried it, it just doesn't work with him. Quicksilver, yep, works with it. Ghost Rider doesn't work with it. I mean, Agent Venom could probably do something with it, but it's a very like last option choice. Like I wouldn't recommend it. Punisher, I would put at the high end of last option. I think it could work on him pretty fine. Punisher has Invincible, so it could probably work. Yeah. Yeah, works. No, doesn't work. Weapon Hex, no, she needs super guard break immunity. Guard break immunity. This, more like a last option. Makes her a little squishy. Hella, no effect. She needs penetration. Doom, you can maybe put it as a last option, but it's not the best choice either. Strife, psh, dude, this is so good on Strife. This is so good on Strife. This is so good on Strife. I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna stick it here. I don't care what people say. Hulk, it's not the best for either. Blue Dragon, I don't know. Maybe you could use it, but it's on the lower end. It's not that it doesn't have any effect. It maybe have some use. Cersei has no effect because she needs penetration. Captain America, I wouldn't recommend because he needs super guard break immunity. Rachel, yeah. If it had guard break immunity, yeah, this would be the best choice. This is the people's second best choice, and I honestly agree with it because she needs any kind of guard break immunity. Mr. Fantastic, I don't know. I mean, nah, maybe not. I think he needs guard break immunity. Um, yeah. Black Swan, yeah, it's not a terrible choice, but yeah, she may need guard break immunity too. Elektra, yeah. Yeah, that works. Daredevil, probably at the lower end of last option. It's not terrible. It's not the worst choice. I mean, anything to give him some damage, I guess. Colossus, nah, no effect. He needs penetration. Gore, yeah, it's not a terrible choice. Like I've had him with that before. And Emma, nah, no effect. I wouldn't put that on her. It's too risky. Needs guard break immunity. Um, kind of interesting. Nobody's really the best with it. Sorry. But you know, you could maybe put Wolverine a little higher. You could put maybe Deadpool a little bit higher. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I think this is pretty accurate. All right, now we're going to go over the last primary CTP. The rest I'm going to go over is niche CTPs, but this is the last primary CTP, which is a Mighty Rage. Now, why is a Mighty Rage in PvP? Well, it has PvP properties. It has super guard break immunity on Enraged. So you could use it in PvP, and if you can manage to get the Enraged proc up with the regular proc, its damage is some of the highest you can achieve. It's just only certain tunes can use it. So we're going to be a little bit quicker with this one. No effect. Too risky. Third best. Null can work with this because of the damage and because of the super guard break immunity that you can control. No effect for PvP. Surfer ain't working with a rage. Ooh. Yeah. This works. You'd be surprised. This does not. Sorry. This does not. This probably does not. Sorry, Apocalypse. This. It's not terrible. But there's better choices, obviously. But, you know, Deadpool does have some hybrid value anyway. So it's not the worst option. This, no effect. This, I've seen whales rock this, and it's totally fine with it. Honestly, killed Thanos's all the time. I'm gonna bully Thanos forever. Spider-Man, no, doesn't work with it. Jean Grey, best CTP to use. Gives her the super guard break immunity, gives her insane damage, makes her insane in PvE. In my opinion, this is the only choice. But there's one other that's niche that could work. This, no effect, obviously, but if you want to use him in PvE, you can. You know, he'll probably be here. Formos would be here in this category, like Rage. So, but with PvP, Rage is no effect. Quicksilver, hell yeah. Great choice. Even though, like, there's other Rage choices. Like, I would put him here personally. But he's really going to go in here because the truth is that he's super useful with it. For me, I think he's fantastic with this. But he struggles in the auto modes. And there's better choices for Rage, obviously, but this is not a terrible choice by any means. This only freaking option for him. This is the only option for him, in my opinion. Maybe a niche choice, but he needs damage and he gets super guard break immunity extra, so he needs it. This no effect, obviously. I'd almost say it makes it worse because if you put a Rage on Agent Venom, you are fucking. Sorry, there's like something wrong with you if you do this. Punisher, no effect. He's more PvP. He's not PvE. Black Widow, it's not the worst choice in the world. People were reviewing her with Rage and they were pretty surprised by her damage. I think she has hybrid value, so this isn't terrible. This also isn't terrible because of the super guard break immunity. It's more of like a last resort. I would use the CTP as a last resort for her personally because I like the damage, but she's not going to do well for me in PvE, so maybe I would probably put her in like the high end of no effect because this is a risk no matter what. It's not like Captain America. Nah, this is no effect. You wouldn't really want to do this. Maybe she may work with it, maybe on the high end of like no effect. I don't know if she has any PvE value, but it's risky. Hela, no effect. Definitely no effect. Maybe like, nah, I'm not gonna make it worse. No. Doom, nah, no effect. I wouldn't do it. Strife, nah, no effect. I don't think he works with it. Hulk, I don't know. Hybrid value, I guess. Gets the super guard break immunity, but this is more for PvE. This is not for PvP. He's not going to do well with this, but it's a useful last option for the hybrid value. But otherwise, he would probably be in this category, no effect. But I'll put him in here just to be generous. This freaking area is getting stacked here. Blue Dragon, I would probably argue no effect. Cersei, no effect. Captain America, I think this is a good choice for him. I think this is totally fine choice for him. He gets super guard break immunity, which gives him PvP value, and he does very high scores if you need him to. Not a bad free to play choice. Rachel, no effect. Needs I guess more damage from that. I don't even know. No effect for Mr. Fantastic. Huge risk. Same with Black Swan. Huge risk. Wouldn't do it. Elektra, I don't think she has enough PvE value, so I would put her maybe in the middle. Her, no, she's definitely not. Him, yeah. Yeah, no. These guys, no. Yeah, that looks about right. Daredevil, no effect. Colossus, no effect. Gore, no effect. Emma, no effect. Bingo. Don't put Rage on Agent Venom. Alright, now we're working with the niche CTPs, the CTPs that aren't picked as often, or they're just support CTPs. This is just a niche one, it's Judgment. Not many people could rock this, but it provides raw damage for elemental tunes. So it could be used for hybrid value. But like for example, like Super Giant is good with this CTP, but Super Giant is not on this list. So that's how niche this actually is. So with all of these tunes on the bottom here, this CTP basically makes them worse because they have no elemental damage, and or they don't have the stats like necessary to rock this CTP. Madeline does have some mind damage. It's just this CTP was not really tested on her, so I have no idea what effect it would have on her. So I just put it under the no effect, like just in case somebody knows, because I have no idea what this does. I almost put Apocalypse here, but I don't think it's the third choice. I think there's obviously better choices. So this is definitely in the useful last option category, right at the top, because he can definitely work with this with his mind damage, and he will do a lot of damage. Emma could probably do some damage. It's not the worst choice in the world, especially if you want to try to make use out of her, because she's been outdated for a very long time. Rachel, I would think could work with this, but she definitely needs guard break immunity of some sort. So this is definitely like a last option choice. I don't think it's terrible. With these two, these were the best choices for Rage, but the second best is Judgment, because they both need damage. Ghost Rider doesn't really need super guard break immunity as much because he gets it from his immortality. Jean executes her skills in their second revive, so she still could work with this pretty well. But other than that, yeah, the CTP is extremely niche and not really used very often. Alright, now we're going to cover the support CTPs. So we're going to cover Liberation. I think Liberation is the slightly better support because it's slightly better for the character itself, and it gives a slightly better defensive boost. So obviously there's only a few people who could work with this, and there's not many. For most, it makes the character worse, so you don't want to put them on the character. However, on Agent Venom, it's the best support. It's the best support for Null, and it makes the character a little bit more maneuverable, giving him guard break immunity, and it gives him a decent offensive boost as well. So this is the best for him. Colossus, this is the second best, basically because it's giving Colossus a bunch of extra stats that he doesn't need because he's not very maneuverable. So still the second best because it's the support CTP. Um, for Deadpool, this was actually a third choice. I don't know if it's still the third choice, but I literally started a trend because I know that Deadpool is very limited at killing meta, but he could kill like very niche blast meta, which is good. So that's why he's recommended with something like Conquest or even something like Greed. But he could be a support for the whole team easily. And he could still get like a little niche kill here and there. Like for Otherworld Battle, for example. I don't think this is a terrible choice for him. I think that this is okay. I mean, granted, like it's more like of the useful last option choice. I mean, I'm just putting it in third best because I'm a little bit biased. But yeah, I would rank it somewhere in here to be fair. Um, Invisible Woman could definitely rock this though. I'm confident in putting that this is a third best CTP just because she could be one of the best supports for you in like Otherworld Battle and things like that. Maybe like a support for a Reed and Franklin team in AC, something like that. Strife could use this. It's gonna make the character not that great, but he could be a decent support. Hella, same thing. It's gonna make the character not that great, but can be a decent support. Sentry, the old Sentry used to. I knew a whale who used to rock this CTP on the old Sentry, and that Sentry was surprisingly strong. I don't think it's the worst choice in the world. Maybe I would put it more on like the no effect area, but I've seen people rock this CTP on Sentry many times before. I have a video on it too. So this is more or less what Liberation looks like. Insight, pretty similar. Just switch them. Colossus is really meant for this CTP because he doesn't really need the extra stats to make him better. Agent Venom, he gets slightly worse if you rock this CTP, but he can definitely still rock it. Um, Invisible Woman, it would make the character not as good, but it's still a very useful last option as a support. Same with Deadpool. Same with Strife. Sentry, it makes worse. Do not put Insight on Sentry, ever. And then Hella, you could still rock her with this CTP as a support, but it's definitely gonna have like no effect kind of category on her. So this has been the 11 CTP lists. There's CTPs I didn't cover. The CTP of Transcendence is similar to Authority and a Regeneration hybrid. So if you want to look at those two lists and reference them, you could maybe incorporate some characters to that CTP. With Patience, I would say it's kind of like a mix between like Regen and Egg, kind of. So you could look at those two lists and try to compare and see if they can work for some characters. Veteran is kind of like a hybrid of Energy and Greed. So if you want to look at those two lists for that CTP, you can maybe reference some characters. If you like the video, like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.